Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel, Best Place for Long-Term Stock Investors. Today, we're going to talk about three things as usual. Malaysia's GDP, where it can go. Deleum, there's some bribery charges. And then, of course, we'll talk about Silterra's new deal with ChipOne, which is a Beijing-based chip manufacturer. And, of course, we also like to declare that we will be talking about some stocks that we ourselves own during this video.
Struggling to build your 6 to 7 figure portfolio? MJ and I, through our combined stock investing experience, lay it out in a step-by-step manner through our stock investing masterclass. You can find the registration in the comment section below.
All right, John. So let's start by talking about Malaysia's GDP. And if you look at my recording here, Malaysia has done pretty well over the past few decades. But of course, in 2020, the GDP growth actually fell to negative 5%. Usually, on average, we grow, anywhere between 4 to 5%. And then we were inspired to this segment because we found this interesting article on The Edge for their paid services that talked about some of the drivers, right? Whether it's consumption or whether it's government spending, etc., etc. So, John, do you want to start off by explaining or sharing with us what do you think about the Malaysian GDP and where can it go from here?
I think the struggle for Malaysia right now is some sort of a political overhang.
Of course.
And the second thing is obviously consumer spending, because as a huge component of GDP, I think everyone is having a look and see attitude. People are tightening their belts. A lot of people have lost their jobs. We looked at some data and, obviously the rich are getting richer.
Yeah, it's a K-shaped recovery, right?
Yeah, it's quite sad, but that's the reality of a capitalist-based economy. I mean, they are. It's not perfect, but I rather have this compared to a socialist-based economy where there's a lot of interference or top-down approach by the government to ensure a socialist kind of state. But capitalist kind of state, they are definitely income disparity, but also I think it also forces people to be the survival of the fittest. And I feel while Malaysia GDP seems to be stagnating or like declining, as what you said, I see pockets of where capital are used more efficiently. And I think those are the pockets that will see that immediate recovery coming. There are a lot of companies that didn't embrace digitization prior to this, and because of COVID, we were talking about companies that brick and mortar and then converted or pivoted towards e-commerce, and those are the guys that will come out of this scenario much better.
Right.
And I feel those are the drivers that we should be looking at, rather than just looking at big picture numbers where pockets of growth may just be diluted by the pockets of stagnation. That's what I think.
So if you see here on the slide, you brought an interesting slide, which is the Consumer Sentiment Index. And I think the consumer is going to play a big role. And, before we started this session, we were discussing about how consumers, right, can actually affect the economy going forward. And that in the US, let's say, after a downturn like we've had in COVID, then they will have this revenge spending.
Correct.
And we're discussing how, as Malaysians, that may not be the case, because we may then suddenly end up saving more now because we just experience a very bad situation. And, even though times are good, then we are pretty cautious, very different from the Americans. But then a lot of our economic theories or understanding is based on what we learn from America, right? So
correct.
I guess what we need to do is to ask ourselves, okay, is that true? Will Malaysians spend more or spend less? And if they spend, what are they going to spend on? And I think that in terms of Malaysian spending, there will be spending, especially from the younger crowd, right? Either they use their own money or they use their parents' money. So that is the more American part about Malaysia, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess more important is, I want to get your thoughts on which sectors in terms of consumption do you think that, Malaysia can experience a boom or a reboom,
Ironically, I feel that a lot of the revenge spending has already happened in a way through e-commerce. I mean, I look at myself, for example. I have two children and they can't go to school. And because of that, they have to take a lot of online classes. And I thought that prior to COVID, I had a lot of devices. But post-COVID, I have even more devices. So electronic, in a way, gadgets that used to be some sort of, a luxury spend in the past, for me today is a necessity. And I think a lot of families, even my parents who are teachers, they are actually spending a lot more in electronic gadgets. Most recently, I just bought my mom another device. So I see that happening already. Those are the things that they will spend because it didn't seem to be a necessity in the past. Now it seems to be slightly more of a necessity. The second thing I feel they will start spending on more is actually food, outside food. People have not dined out for such a long time. The moment there's an opportunity to consume services, especially food and beverages, I think that will be the first one that will see the impact. Apparel, I don't feel there would be so much of a revenge spending. I could be wrong. Clothes. I think today, once they found a good balance of working from home versus working in the office, there's not much of a need to really dress up as much, right, MJ? I don't know about you. I haven't bought a shirt in like 2 years. So I think
in terms of apparels, I think at the end of the day, the way to get a boom from apparels is for malls to just start back again, right?
Correct.
Because, it's always impulse, right?
Yeah.
It's always impulse, and that's how they get it. But now without a storefront, maybe the impulse may not be as strong. But certainly, like you say, e-commerce certainly has helped that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. So any companies that don't have an e-commerce store is gonna find a lot of problems, right? As we've done in our retail deep dive recently.
Yeah. Precisely. So as long as they don't have a storefront, where's your avenue for selling? And if it's the physical stores are closed, virtually you already close up one channel, one of your main channels for actually distributing your product.
Yeah, and shirts you need to feel, and I think also shirts you need to feel it.
Yeah,
you can't like it. I know people who buy online. I guess they know their bodies very well and they can maintain themselves very well. But they do need actually to feel it, and so that's why I still think you need malls. Otherwise you can't really get the traffic that you want.
Very aligned with you.
Yeah. All right. Next topic. Okay, guys. Before we move on, just to remind you or let you know, we do accept stock reports, and we actually give free reviews as to whether your stock idea is good or not. So you just have to send to this email in front of the screen right here. And if you're really, really good, we'll actually consider adding you into our exclusive research team. All right, John, now we take a look at Deleum. So it's an oil and gas company. And, over the past 6 months, not been doing very well, down 17%. At a high of 70 odd cents, now it's 52. And recently, if you look at the slides, they, went through a bribery case, right?
Yeah.
MACC 17A. So before we give our thoughts, maybe just walk us through what has happened.
What happened was not directly by Deleum. It was actually a subsidiary. And the subsidiary, maybe I'll just talk about all the main parties first of this case. And then you guys get a better picture of what actually happened. So there are actually 4 parties involved. The first party is this company called Pristine Offshore, which is Sdn Bhd. It's not a listed co. And they actually tried to bribe, or they didn't try, they bribed officers in this company called Deleum Primera, which is a 60% owned subsidiary of the listed company Deleum, in which you shared the share price just now. And Deleum would have they were trying to get a contract from Petronas Carigali for a topside maintenance job. So, and because of all this, the four main parties, what happened was MACC recently just introduced an act. It's called the 17A, just enacted in June 2020. And it's actually a corporate liability act. It actually charges the company, even though those that were acting on behalf of the company did all these hanky-panky things. Mm-hmm. So it reminded me, MJ, you introduced me this gangster series about how the New York prosecutors actually went after the gangsters, the head honchos. And in the past, the head honchos would leave their machais or their people under them, the soldiers. They said, "Oh, I claim no knowledge of this," but the act actually allowed the prosecutors to prosecute the gang heads as well, right, MJ?
Yes, that's right. It connected the actions of the soldiers to the head, because the head, that is the one that ordered them to basically kill or do whatever they are not supposed to do. And of course, from an ethical standpoint, from a legal standpoint, you can argue that, it's two individuals. But from an ethical standpoint, it is the way, of course, ethically is wrong, but the way the legal suit came in was that because if your soldiers did not do what you asked them to do, they will actually be punished in some ways. So there's use of force. So the linkage is not direct, but it's clear.
Yeah. Yes. And I think this MACC Act was, in a way, is trying to link all the parties as well, because I see that they are going. So probably someone in the high-ranking part of the group, they could actually just deny and just say that, oh, this guy acted on his own or whatsoever. But this act actually ties it all together, and I think that's good. The reason why I wanted to cover this particular story for our quick dive this week was because all these, if you notice the structure, right, is actually buried in all the subsidiaries.
Yep.
Yeah, and when you look at a financial report of a public listed company, once you do all the consolidation, you may not be able to trace all this. They may not even appear very clearly on the company's disclosure. And I feel as an investor, it's really knowing the company's management's values. So while you have all these accounting guidelines or corporate governance law, if there is already an intention by the company to actually defraud investors, I think that's where you have to learn how to pick up the skill to try to recognize that. I know it's not easy, even for me and you, MJ, but I think if the company itself is already not honest, they will find ways and means, no matter what law that comes through. They will find loopholes to actually exploit that. And I think that is something that a lot of value investors, including the great Warren Buffett himself, keeps on extolling, the inner scorecard. If management himself don't hold themselves to an inner scorecard, and I think you can trace this by, attending the AGMs, look at all their press reviews and all that. You can roughly see a person's character and actions, whether they are aligned or not. You may not be able to see it once, but maybe over a span of a few years, you'll be able to judge, right? Any thoughts on that, MJ? About company's character, management character?
Yeah, it's how they answer that's very important. So if, let's say, then you might come back and say, well, I don't even know what they sound like. They don't appear a lot. In which case you can, either learn how to study the financials really well, or just, move on, right? You don't have to buy a stock if you don't understand it, or if you're not comfortable with not knowing what management sounds and look like. But if you get a chance to chat with them or see them in video or whatever, look at the way they answer the questions, right? Do they give more than what you ask for, or do they just give typical corporate speak and typical corporate answers? I think that is very crucial.
Very, very
how they
crucial.
treat investors is, I think it's the same for human relationships, right? Like you judge someone by how he or she treats someone who has nothing to give them.
Correct.
So if you're a small investor, or if let's say a small investor asks the CEO a question, he answers that guy the same way he would if it was a big fund manager.
Yeah.
Right. One person that does this really well is actually Tan Sri Tony Fernandez. I know not his Thai head, not the Thai CEO, but certainly my experience has always been he treats every shareholder essentially the same. He gives them pretty much the same answer, and they answers pretty much the same way. So that I think is absolutely crucial. Now, before we go on to the next topic, right? What do you think if you're a Deleum shareholder and you hear this news?
Yeah.
What do you think you should do?
Very. I'm very tempted to say just sell everything and just move on. But at the same time, I think because I've never been an investor in this company, even though I used to deal with them many, many times when I was working in Shell, because we used to buy a lot of equipment from them. And they have some sort of a monopoly, some sort of I wouldn't say it's a moat, but some sort of a monopoly, because a certain type of equipment has to go through them if you were to operate in Malaysian waters, and that equipment is very critical for the topside facilities of any oil and gas facility. I do find some of their management staff in which I've interacted personally with them to be honest, but this is where the dilemma is, MJ. It's because you probably have some of the top guys that, did not perform up to spec in terms of values. But then you have some people who are working their ass off, doing things with professional integrity, being tarnished by, because it's just
the management, right?
Yeah, you just so happen to be in the same company, and then some rogue guy actually decided to do something on that's not in line. I would say, if you can par down your stake and adopt a wait and see attitude, I think that would be an option. The other way is, seek as much clarification as possible at any public avenue. That means through an AGM, through an EGM, right into them, If you see the response of the management as rather sweeping it under the carpet, that for me raises red flags. But if you see them trying to respond, trying to give you an honest or as much clarity as possible in the scenario, I think that's a good thing. Because the guy who was implicated, the Pristine Offshore guy, he's actually a director of another public listed company, MJ. Thank God that you brought this question up. Yeah,
Sonic, right?
Data Sonic, yes. And in the board, as I was studying to prepare for this, in the board of Data Sonic, you have high caliber guys. You even have the brother-in-law of the previous prime minister we had, Tun Mahathir, Tun Siti Hasma's brother. And
wow.
Yeah. So Data Sonic, as you know, they do part of our national registration system, our ICs and all that. So it's a lot of government link contracts. I feel if the management itself cannot be authentic, like what you've pointed out earlier, cannot be authentic, then I would actually quickly par down my stake. Because then that they're just trying to sweep things under the carpet. I mean, we've been to many AGMs, MJ. You picked up one example, Tan Sri Tony. I would highlight another example of the Yinsen guys. The other example I would give is Tan Sri Ngao of Dialog. I've attended a few of Dialog's AGMs. He will always be there half an hour before the AGM starts. So if it starts at 10, he'll be there by 9:30 or even earlier, 9:15. And he'll be outside in the lobby. All those uncle, aunties, they'll be there crowding him, and he will take questions directly, So,
very good.
Yeah, Hatta Lega does the same. All these, how would I say, for the lack of a better term, high caliber companies and high caliber CEOs, right? They are not afraid to meet shareholders. Whereas if you see those, they will be there early during the AGM. They understand it is an avenue for shareholders to question them and to get a status of what is going on in the company. And if you see some CEOs, they only come in at 10 in the morning and they don't feel answerable to shareholders and they give you some corporate speak. I actually get a very, very turn off. Very, very turn off.
So do I.
Yeah.
So With that, next topic. Okay, before we move on, guys, as always, if you enjoyed the video so far and if you think that this video is gonna help a lot of your friends or family, do share it with them, give it a like, leave us any comments that you want, and of course, subscribe if you love our content and click on the notification bell so that you know when fresh new videos are out. Okay, next we go to DNEX, right? DNEX stock that we talked about a few months ago, a couple of months ago. Stock is up 20% over the past month. And one of the reasons that it's been up is because if you look at the slides recently, in the August 4th of August, DNEX, their 60% owned subsidiary of Silterra, actually got into a long-term contract with ChipOne, and the contract is $400 million, which is roughly half their market cap right now. About half, right? So we're not just going to talk about DNEX only. We'll also be talking about Lum Research, but that later on. John, what do you think of this deal?
I think it's a great boost because the biggest complaint for Silterra in the past were two things. One was capacity utilization of their factory because they weren't securing enough contracts.
Right.
And the second thing was actually capex expansion on buying new machinery. Because in the semiconductor space, it's very brutal competition. You need the latest gears to actually produce chips at a better, utilizing better technology. And that was, so it's a chicken and egg thing, If you're not getting revenues and profits, how can you plow those profits back into the business to actually grow by using capex, And I think this augurs very well. Over the long run, I think it definitely will increase capacity utilization of their factories. Second thing is I hope that the money, the profits generated will really help them upgrade whatever machinery that Silterra lacks today. And, I feel over the long run, I always hope that a Malaysian champion could actually, in a way, tap into this space because we've been very blessed with certain policies that the state government of Penang did in the past. They brought in a lot of foreign direct investments and companies like Intel, Infineon and all that and create some sort of an ecosystem in Penang. And I feel that has somewhat stagnated over the years. Certain companies did thrive, especially the ATE boys. But in terms of slightly more upstream in the front end wafer manufacturing, I think that has actually stagnated because the champions of the world, TSMC, Samsung, have actually gotten so much of an edge, even compared to the US boys, you see. And I feel that we will be left out if we don't do something. Maybe not at a scale of TSMC, but at least at a niche space where Silterra is. And I feel it's too good of an opportunity not to pass up on. Actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this, so that's DNEX. That's our DNEX. Something going to be trying to be like our TSMC, right? Trying to be the TSMC for Malaysia.
Actually, they hate that, MJ. They hate the comparison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you see, every time Firdaus, which is the CEO of Silterra, keeps on talking, people just compare apple to apple between TSMC and DNEX and Silterra. Sorry, actually they're not playing in the same space. TSMC is more logic chips, more high performance computing. Whereas DNEX space or Silterra, sorry, I keep on using them interchange. Silterra are more towards display drivers, more towards MEMS, as I mentioned in the previous video. It's a very niche part, microelectronics, mechanical systems. They are more towards fingerprint sensors, which is part of MEMS and all that. It's a very niche. Right. So the competitor, in a way, is not directly TSMC.
Of course.
Obviously, TSMC has the scale, has the government subsidies and all that. They're playing in a more niche space, but it's also in the wafer manufacturing space. And I think rather than try to do a direct comparison, try to find out the competitors of Silterra and then compare them again. But it's a little bit difficult, MJ, because a lot of the competitors of Silterra are actually private own companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they are not exactly the same, obviously, but it is in one sense where it is like a national champion,
Yeah, correct.
right? In that
Correct.
sense, you know.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's DNEX, and we can agree that this is quite a positive move, not just for the company, but also for
the nation.
the nation. But
Yeah.
how about LUM Research, which I think is probably maybe in my view a bigger news, because LUM Research is investing about 1 billion, if you look at the slides, into Penang. Penang is our Silicon Valley. And if you look at the next slide, a lot of these stocks, this is by Maybank, will actually potentially benefit, right? UWC, Frontcan, Greatech, Pentamaster, and our sources on the ground actually shares with us that companies like Wong Engineering as well,
Correct.
that could really benefit from this.
And Kobe as well.
Yeah. We forgot Kobe, right? But Kobe, of course. So, like, what do you think are some of the knock-on effects for this investment being made by LUM Research, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's an S&P 500 company.
Oh yeah,
in the
actually,
US, right?
in terms of semiconductors equipment manufacturer space, they are always between 1 and 2. The number 1 being Applied Materials. So they are definitely a giant. And glad that you pointed out the S&P 500 index component. I feel the knock-on effect is tremendous. For one, if you understand their business model where they manufacture equipment for the wafer foundries, they need an ecosystem to support the manufacturing of those equipment. For example, precision metal. So you pointed out Wong Engineering, and I pointed out Kobe and UWC. So these are the guys that think of them as the subcontractors to LUM. So there's one knock-on effect already. Secondly, if they were to house their manufacturing facilities in Penang, guys like Silterra can benefit because logistics cost virtually is across the causeway. You just bring it. So obviously they will try to sell to Silterra or in US dollar terms or whatever. But I'm pretty sure there is some sort of logistic savings there as one. And it does augur well because if they are so close together, there's potential because machine manufacturers, especially for these very specialized machines, you don't sell what we call very off the shelf. A lot of these machines require customization, and the closer they are to their clients, the better collaboration, the better sharing of best practices and technology, the better and the faster they maintain. Let's just say Silterra buys a machine from LUM, right? And that particular machine breaks down. Because the manufacturing facility is just like next door, right? You can actually just get the technician over as fast as possible and try to bring it up. I think that is where Taiwan and China really benefits. You see, even ASML, the key leader in EUV photolithography, right? They have a big office in Taiwan. They have an office in China, and that close collaboration is what it is key to developing a very robust ecosystem for these manufacturers. I think it's for me. I've been following this for a very long time, and when LUM first announced that they're coming to Penang, I was like, oh my god, the knock-on effect is going to be huge.
Huge. So I have to ask you, right? So of the 4 that is in front here, which one are you positive about? Most positive lah. I guess they're all positive, but
yeah, they're all positive. For me, I would I'm biased when I say this. Of course, Frontcan. We understand the business quite well, and I think why is because LUM and Frontcan have a very long working relationship. I think that is something that is a known fact. Obviously, it's not very clearly stated in their AR, but it's a known fact that they are working very closely with LUM, and I think that augurs well. It's closer instead of being separated geographically by quite some distance.
True. Agree. Again, I think it's important the disclaimer that we actually I'm not, but am I? No, I am.
You are
shareholder of Frontcan. You are as well. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the end of our quick dive. If you enjoyed it, again, come watch some of our other videos if you like this kind of content. And share it with your friends if you like it. See you in the next quick dive.
See you. Bye.